Let's switch into the task list component.ts. You can see that we got our field, which is tasks, so the array of task items that we are creating. We are right now storing that information inside of the component. But as I said earlier, we should really store those informations inside of a service, because just from a programmer side of view, maybe someone else, another developer is coming and saying to you, okay, let me just write down a mobile app for that application and I'm sure I can get the tasks from your service, right? And then you can say, oh yeah, sure, I got that service, and that service returns you the task items. And so does your component also get those task items from the service. So what we do now is we take that field here. I will copy that and remove it, so we cut it simply out, save it, go back to the task service and just put it in here. So let's just place it right underneath the constructor. Awesome, so that's done. Let's switch back to the component, because for sure you can see that we got a compilation error here, right? So we click on that add button inside of our form, need to push a new task item to that task field, which is now inside of our service. So let's scroll up, and here let's import our task service, which we have just created. You can see it automatically gets auto-completed, task service from task.service. And now let's scroll down until you come into the task list component. Let's just add it under the constructor too, that's fine. So what we do here is we say task service equals to new task service. Just like that for now. Okay, so in that way we can scroll down again and go to the add method here, and then take that complete line of code, this task push, right? Let's just copy that, remove it from here, bring it to task service, and then scroll down until you come to our already created add task method. Let's place that right here. We just have to adjust that new task, because if you take a look at the parameter, you can see that we have the value here, so we don't have to call this. So what we do is we want to push new task title. So now it's referencing the parameter. Go back to the task list component. So let's save here. Go back to task list component, and inside of the add method right here, so exactly where we just had that previous call, we want to call this dot service, so task service dot add task, and we just submit the new task. There we go. So inside of the component, we just set together or set up a new task, right? We got that right here. And then we just, once the user clicks on the add button, we submit, so let's say we submit the form, right? And then call the task service, call the add task method on that service, and submit the task which we have just set together inside of the form. So getting that information is still handled by the component, which is fine. So what did the user enter there? Absolutely fine. But then adding a task to the real, let's say, data source, so our list, which potentially could also be a database, right? This is all handled by the service. So updating a task or adding a task or getting a task from that list, all of this is now or will now get handled by the service. And only the component takes care of like being an interface or a middleman between the user interface elements and what the user enters and the service. So this is how it works. The component just takes care about loading the data from services, for example, or setting information and sending them into a service. Okay, so let's scroll down. You can see inside of that remove method here, this call, this takes tasks filter, right? So we are just removing something here. And what we want to do is we want to take that line of code, cut it out, go to the task service and bring it inside this remove task method. Now again, here we also say something similar. Let me just check that this task equals to this task filter, task goes to task is not existing task. Okay, so let me copy over the name of that parameter because there was a typo, existing task. Okay, so the typo was like here. Oh yeah, there's an I too much. Sorry, I haven't seen that. No problem. So now it's working. and we can remove a task right here. So switch over to the task list component again, and instead of, well, doing the functional code here, we for sure want to go ahead and call the service. So task service dot remove task. So again, we will achieve exactly the same result, but we will take the service, or we will let the service do the work, right? Great. So now we are removing a task too. Go into the task service. Here, where we define that field tasks, let's make that private, because in the end, we don't need to have that public, because we have a method, or later on we will have one, right, which will just deliver us the information about the tasks. So the field itself should not be able to get manipulated, and public stuff is able to get manipulated. So what we do, we just make it private, so that this field here is only editable from inside of that class task service. Now scroll down until you come to the throw new error, and instead of throwing an error, we just simply return this dot tasks. So now it also returns, well, the content of, or it just returns that task item array. Awesome. Okay, so right now we got the functionality for all those 3 methods completed. We got get all tasks, add a task, and we can even remove a task. Now, if I write down ngserve here, you will see for sure that it not works, because we have some templates referencing the initial stuff we just set up in the component. So let's just see what it brings to us. Right, you can see failed to compile, but that's not a problem at all. Let's switch over to the task list component. So the HTML stuff is for sure still referencing a field called tasks. That's what we just removed. But we don't completely have to remove it, we just needed to cut it out and bring it back to the task service. So inside of the task list component right now, what we for sure can do is we just again create a new tasks field. But the value is not a new array or whatever. No, as a value we now take the service. So let's say this task service dot get all tasks. So right now we are using all of our 3 providing or from the service provided methods. Getting, so here we get all the tasks, stored inside of a tasks field. So now all the compilation errors are gone. We are adding, so here we use add task, and we are removing, so here we use remove task. So our service is implemented completely. Awesome. So let's see if it now compiles. You can see compiled successfully. Great. So let's take a look. But I already want to tell you that even if we create something now, if we go to tasks and we write down here, go to the mall, it will not work. So we can now add it, no problem, go to the mall. But once I just go back, for example, to a different date and come back here, you can see it's gone. So from a visual side it worked, but the service got just created new in the moment where we just went back and clicked on tasks again, because we didn't use the dependency injection here. So just real quick, right now what happens is the service gets created again and again and again with every request, which for sure always clears our tasks field. So the information that we save here in one call, once we just go back to the page or just come back here again, well, will be gone. And using the dependency injection takes care of handling instances. So we just create our task service once. So all the information gets stored during the entire runtime of the application. And in that way, when I go back to a different website and come back, or web page from our app here and come back, the information is still there. So what we need to do, we need to use the dependency injection, because right now, you can see this, we are just inside of the task list component, and every time we come to the component, we create a new task service. And therefore, we for sure always create a new task array here. So let's make use of that service in the way it's designed.